one from each one win one, which was his seminary thesis, and getting what the other one is, but there's a fifth book.
अंकल, और कुछ बताइए भारत के एक्सपीरियंस के बारे में। ये हम लोगों के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है। हाँ
English में हो सकता है।
हाँ
So they're asking me to tell some of my experience. This is just memories of Kenneth Hoke. It is not, other people may have to check out some of these things, but to tell some of the story. Mission work in Bihar began quite early. The very first people who came here ended up with diseases, and most of them died. Later, Henry Smith came, and he also ended up dying from disease and is buried at the Saharsa Cemetery. But he and his wife had children, and they became committed to being in India. And just as I was told tonight about 4 generations, the Smiths as a family had 4 generations of people who lived and worked here. And so, of course, you who are familiar with Mussoorie, Dana and Judy Kreider at Woodstock would be one, so their parents, and then their parents beyond that, and then now we're going on to the next generation, also involved in various things. So many people who came to India had a very long time commitment to India, and were here in that way. Unfortunately, in 1972, things changed with the government of India, and all of the missionaries were asked to leave the country. And so the missionaries, especially in this area, needed to leave. My own family, we left in 1963, but that we left because my father was an only child, and his father had died while we were here in India, and then his mother was very ill, and we really needed to go home to take care of his mother. And that was, so we left in 1963, and then in 1971, my parents came back to India again, and worked first at Allahabad Bible Seminary they were shared, they were seconded to OMS International from Brethren in Christ World Missions, but they were working for both of them, and my father and mother both worked at the seminary. And then after that, Transworld Radio hired my father, and he was the first all India coordinator for Transworld Radio when they opened the Sri Lanka station. And the whole purpose when they hired was not that he would keep doing that work, but that he would use his contacts and other things to be able to take and pass that work on to other people. And now, so that's a little bit of history of my own parents, but I think it also speaks to the work that they were seeking to do while they were here in country. You have mentioned the educational thrust, the hospital thrust. Those things were very much so. The church education, hospital. These were very significant. We were today at Barjora, and my parents came to India in 1945, and that was right at the time of independence. And then in 1947, partition happened. The Muslims and Hindus were not getting along very well in that time, as people were going to then what became called East Pakistan. And a number of adults were killed and many orphans were left in this region growing out of those difficulties. And that really became the beginning of the orphanage, first boys and girls orphanage in Barjora, and then growing out of that became a school ministry there to be able to teach these boys and girls and go beyond, and to be able to have that. Many of the first people who were Christians, became Christians in this region were illiterate. So there was not, here's a Bible, go and read. Or like I saw this evening, many people with our cell phones, and we were reading the scriptures from our cell phones as well as reading music from our cell phones. In those days, it was really a place of teaching people. So yesterday we were in Banmanki, and we heard of the various times there of the homemakers course and the women's work that was done, and women would leave their villages for a month and come to Banmanki, live in Banmanki, and have classes regularly. We're taught many different, very practical skills, and there was the beginning of reading, writing kinds of teaching as well. Then they'd go back to their village area for 2 months and live those things, and then come back during a 1-year piece. Then would come back to Banmanki for a month and back for 2 months and back. That type of thing, back and forth. Each of the mission stations developed particular kinds of ministries. So there was at Saharsa, a school was developed, as well as a home for widows. It became a ministry, and these were ministries alongside of being the church in the area, and they were not reserved only for Christians, especially like the school. There was an outreach into the community. So that was, and eventually in Barjora area, there had been a lot of flooding, and Supal even more, which was, but in Barjora, the thing that began there was a church ministry, but there was an experimental farm that began in Barjora. And the effort there was to be able to teach and show how, even though there was all of this destruction every year by the flooding of the Kosi, you could still manage those things. And if you irrigated, if you did these different things, you could actually grow crops. And so Arthur Pai was very influential in that work, so that was in that region. the women's schools and those things happened in Banmanki, and then little by little things started to move towards Purnia and on to in the Uran area. Berial, we were out in Berial, became a center working with the Uran people. These days, the church is working as your ministry with many different people groups, and we often say that there's more unreached people groups in India than in any other country or place. So that has become from BIC U.S. Missions is a great interest as to how the church may be encouraged to continue to reach out to these unreached people groups. One of the problems that we face as a U.S. mission in these days is we are not allowed to proselytize here in the country of India. So we cannot go out on the street and encourage people, tell them the gospel, do those things. We can do what we've been doing in this time, which is actually go to a Christian gathering and then try to really encourage and teach and do things within a Christian gathering. And so that has been something that has been particularly significant over the last number of years for our mission in terms of coming and seeking to understand more and more of what is actually happening here in the church and how we can encourage and how we can stand alongside. So I'm going to stop right there for a little while. Then you can ask some questions. Maybe we can go.
Yes, I have a question. जैसा कि पूरे दुनिया में BIC चर्च कम्युनिटी को हम लोग मदर चर्च के रूप में मानते हैं भारत के लिए इन इंडिया। और हमेशा हम लोगों ने देखा है कि यूएसए से BIC चर्च की कम्युनिटी पूरे विश्व के लिए काम कर रही है, परमेश्वर के लिए आत्मा जीते जाने के लिए। परंतु आज के हाल के दिनों में, इन दिनों में देखा जा रहा है जब हम लोगों का कोलैबोरेशन किसी ग्रुप के साथ, एजुकेशनल ग्रुप के साथ या हॉस्पिटल ग्रुप के साथ हमारा कोलैबोरेशन हो रहा था, लेकिन हम लोग देख रहे हैं आजकल खास करके जमीनी विवाद को लेकर इसको अनदेखा किया जा रहा है। तो क्या ऐसा नहीं लग रहा कि परमेश्वर के प्रेम को ठंडा करने के लिए किसी तरह का शैतान का कुछ काम हो? आपका क्या है?
Okay. So the question that is being asked that so we're often we think of a mother church, one that's been the planting group and those kinds of things. But unfortunately, what's happened is that had various groups, and this relates especially to 1972, where who will handle all of this church property if the organizations of the missions are not able to minister in the country? Who will who will handle the property? Who will do those things? And so, and then particularly, land becomes more and more of an issue among people, rather than really where are we in terms of sharing the gospel? And so then, what are my thoughts? In 1972, and Harvey Sider was very involved with this. My parents had already left the country. Harvey was here, but people from all the different mission organizations. There were many property holdings all across India. And so there was an effort to try to say, how can we appropriately make an organization that these properties could be transferred to them and they could still be used in the ways that that what they thought were appropriate, long term. There were enough hospital properties, a significant amount of them, that it seemed like there ought to be a distinct group to work with just hospital properties, and that became the Evangelical Hospital Association, EHA, and so hospital properties were transferred into EHA as a holding company, if you will. They're the holding company for the property, and so deeds were transferred. Many of those kind of things happened, so that there was appropriate management of property, but it was done in that fashion. The many other church properties went into Itani, which were the general church properties, and there were church communities, just like I think you said here, how many acres that there were in this particular mission right here, in this community, so those properties moved into Itani, again as a holding company, and it was our effort to. We wanted to meet with Ezra Nehemiah. Ezra Roberts, who is the current leader of Itani. Very unfortunately, just while we were in Delhi, our schedules did not match, so we weren't able to do that. We have regular contact with him, but it would have been good to sit down face to face, to have conversation, and but that continues to happen. And then locally, and this has been something that under Secretary Joel Marandi has happened. Many of the church properties here in the BIC Bihar, they were still under the names of either my father or Harvey Sider, and these were the people who had purchased these properties, and they hadn't been transitioned to move them from those names on into to move them into the church name, and it seemed that has been very difficult. I'll just take a few moments, then we'll be finished and we'll change to your hosting. But so just in the last year or so, Brother Joel has been able to finally get all of those documents changed over. I actually possess a document from both Harvey Sider and my father. Both of them are dead and gone, but that they authorized me to sign their name if in fact I would have needed to sign a document. That has not happened, but I did carry, I still have that document in my possession. So that effort is an effort to make sure that all of the church properties had actually been transferred from what I will call the mission ownership to the church ownership, and so that has been a very significant work, and it's just recently, in the last year or two, has been completed. So so we're talking now 2022. And this was from 1972. So that was unfortunately very, very long time in getting that finished, but very, very good to have it done. And so that's where we stand today, as I understand it. And then is how everybody looks at given pieces of paper, and they kind of decide, oh, this means this or this means this. But we have to have those conversations.
One request for PIC USA
Hmm.
for one message.
So you're talking to my brother right beside you.
Please give a message for Indian PIC Church.
Message for Indian DIC Church, DIC US.
Chal-
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah.
My encouragement to the church in India would be to continue to grow the kingdom and to focus on that eternal kingdom, and to know that God is with you and that you are remembered by the church across the U.S. And as I think the COVID season in the U.S. has helped us to focus more on some of the fundamental disciplines of faith, things like praying together and community. I would encourage intercession both here for the church, and we continue to encourage the church in the U.S. to intercede for our brothers and sisters around the world. And we would welcome you to send us your prayer requests, and we will be faithful in praying for you.